with interesting people in our journey. And we would like today to introduce to you Zhena Muzyka, who has been a lovely founder of a tea company, Zhena's Gypsy Teas. But meanwhile, she is now become an author and told her wonderful story in this lovely book called Life One Cup at a Time, or Life by the Cup. All of her moments that have led to the success and really the whole journey and the twists and turns that it's taken you. And I was also really excited that you're so interested in the tea garden and the people that actually provide the teas for you. So Zhena, thank you so much for joining us today. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you on this Thirsty Thursday. And our theme this month is about presence. And so if there is anything more that indicates presence, it's the idea that life is just one cup at a time. All those tea moments to be had.
Yeah, definitely. So yes, I founded Zhena's Gypsy Tea in 2000, and it was based on my grandmother's, my heritage as a Roma gypsy, and we used herbs and teas to heal every ailment, whether it be physical or emotional or spiritual. And so tea was always the way that I bonded with my grandma, and it was always the way that I learned to kind of calm things down, take things down a notch, recenter. And when I left for college, I was 18, and I went to an international school in the Midwest, all women's college, and there were all these students from Japan, and they needed help to with their English papers. And so I was fascinated by their matcha tea ceremony, and they would sit and do tea, and I would help them. So in exchange for them teaching me about their tea, I would help them with their English papers. And it just, everywhere I went, I made blends for people, and I gave it away, you know, to friends for Christmas, or if somebody was sad, I would make them a blend, or I was always, it was just a part of my life. And so when I thought I was going to be a writer, and when I had my son, and so I asked God, and I talk about it in my book, I asked God what I could do to pay for the operation. I was single, I was living on a small creative writing grant. I had $6 to my name, and I had a vision, I was over a cup of tea, of course, of a gypsy tea party. And I thought, oh my God, I've been writing this book about my gypsy grandmother, understanding the beauty of their culture. I love tea, it's my lifeline, and if I could combine the two, that could be pretty amazing. And so I threw a gypsy tea party, and the first one I talk about in Life by the Cup. And I sold about $1,000 worth of tea, which to me could have been like $10 million at the time, because it was a lot of money. And I started throwing these magical tea parties all over the state of California, primarily in my hometown, Ojai, for a while. And then it took off. I started packaging teas and putting my blends together. I'd studied aromatherapy and had a certificate in that, so I started putting essential oils and using kind of a perfumer's wisdom in the actual blending of the teas, and came up with some fun blends. And that was the format actually that the book took, which I thought was interesting for me, because I had writer's block when I sat down to write this after, you know, 13 years of building the business and getting Sage all of his operations, and he's healthy now and wonderful. But I was sitting down to write, like, what happened? That was like a lot of running. I mean, I raised almost $10 million in venture capital. I got the product into 22,000 stores. I was focused on ending poverty for tea workers, because while I had a son with a birth defect and was quote unquote a welfare mom at the beginning, I had to, you know, get him operations with no health insurance, which was really challenging and demeaning. And then I realized these other women in these other countries, I found out they made $1.50 a day. They had no health care. They didn't even have toilets. And here we were drinking tea across the world, thinking we're doing this great thing for our bodies. And we were actually not aware that it was negatively impacting the workers. So I discovered fair trade and started working with Paul Rice at Fair Trade USA, and started going over to the tea fields and working with the women And that was the love of my business. I realized that God had given me this visual of this awesome gypsy tea party simply as kind of cheese in the maze. I was like the little mouse following it through. And then I got to the tea fields and I realized the women needed an advocate. And so I created some videos and I took a lot of photos of the fair trade garden that I had discovered versus the non-fair trade. And I started going to retailers and educating them at their corporate headquarters. So I went to Kroger corporate, Walmart, I went to Target, I went to Whole Foods, I went everywhere, and I started showing Cost Plus World Market. I started showing them the impact of fair trade, and they were shocked. They couldn't believe all this was happening in the tea fields, and they were like, how come nobody's told us? And so everybody jumped in to help, and I got my products in Safeway nationwide and all these other stores because it was a chance for them to help. And so the theme of the book, each chapter is based on one of the tea blends that I created, but then it goes into a life story, and then it gives you a lesson at the end, and then it gives you exercises to practice the life lesson. And so I was inspired when I sat down to write by the tea itself. I was sitting around thinking, I don't want to write a business book. I don't want to write a fair trade, necessarily a book just about fair trade. I want to write something that people can use. And then I thought, well, if they can read a chapter in the time it takes to have a cup of tea, then I can help them create a healthy ritual for themselves. And so that's what I did. So the chapters are short enough to sip. And, you know, there's ones on, you know, pride cannot feed a baby, which is learning to ask for help. Just show up. You know, even if you're not prepared, if you show up, something will happen inevitably. It's just kind of the way it works. Start where you are. I always thought I needed $1 million to start a business, or I needed an MBA, or, you know, I needed something, and I realized I just needed to start wherever I was and put my heart into it, and it would work. So they're all very entertaining stories at my expense. Thank you very much. And yeah, it's been fun. I mean, Mark Wahlberg optioned it. The people at Leverage Entertainment who created Entourage and Boardwalk Empire and all those great shows, most recently Ballers, they optioned it, and they're turning it into a series right now. It's been very cool. And yeah, and when I published the book, and then my publisher, Simon & Schuster, asked me to create my own brand of books at their company. So I left the tea company, and I went back to my first love, which was writing and helping other writers. And I am now creating a line of mind, body, spirit, and wellness books called Enliven Books. And I have a few that have come out, and I have 25 authors that I've signed already. And so I'm combining now my two favorite things. Wine, no, not wine. Oh, that's next. I'll tell you about that in a second. Tea.
That's another story.
And then I was going to say my other favorite thing would be wine, but I'm not getting into the wine business because I don't think I'm moderate enough. And so, yeah, so the teas are a perfect complement to reading. And I feel like you can create a little sense of paradise on earth by having your tea and book in hand and creating a really healthy reading ritual. So that's what I'm doing. And I love my Libre cups. And I was telling Wendy just now that I've had these for years. I mean, I still have my first one, and it's still in good shape. I can't believe it. But this is the only one my son, who's about to be 16, who the book is dedicated to, it's the only one he hasn't stolen because it's pink. So I could have had my whole collection behind me, but they're all in his locker at school. And he loves them, and he looks cool carrying them. But this is the one I get to keep because it's my pink one. So
beautiful.
So that's a lot of information. So you can ask me questions.
Yes. No, thank you. That's an awful lot of story all in one place in terms of, you know, how you came into it. And then the development with your whole family and being propelled into the tea business with your gypsy grandma. And that was another place I had an affinity, quite a close relationship with my grandma too. And
Did you?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes. No, I really did. It wasn't all about tea, though, actually. So I must say
yeah.
I came to tea a little bit later in life. So yours was all about the tea for sure.
Well, it was actually about what she was growing in the yard, and then she would show
Oh,
me how to infuse it, like orange peel. She didn't waste anything, so she would dry out the orange peel from the orange tree after she used the fruit, and then we'd infuse that with rose petals, cinnamon sticks from the cupboard. Like, it was really about the magic of nature infused in a cup, which tea actually creates for us. It's so miraculous. We're so lucky.
yeah. No, that is quite a way to put it in regards to tea. What, nature's already got. We're just infusing with water and then we get the delightful job of drinking it for sure. And so tell me a little bit more, because one of the things that I really enjoyed about your book also was that the book is divided in each of those chapters, and that, you've got a bit of a lesson there. And then there is actually a place, to work through and reflect. And I think that's so important when you read something like that, is that, you can just move along to the next chapter, but to really sort of get a little bit more value out of it, you put that reflecting part. I was just wondering what made you or inspired you did that kind of format.
I'm a really practical woman. What I discovered in being in business and being a mom is that I really like actionable items. Like, I like to know, like, if somebody says, like, lean in, for instance, Sheryl Sandberg wrote this awesome book, and it's like, but she's like a billionaire flying around in private jets. And like, for me, I would read it and go, well, there's all this like stuff, it leaves you kind of wondering, well, now what, and so what I thought with this book is I wanted it to be really something people could use and go into again and again, because we remember things, we forget. We remember, we forget. It's just part of being human. And if, like, the first chapter talks about, actually the second, the first chapter teaches meditation, which is the form of meditation that Buddha became enlightened by. And it's called Vipassana. And it's very confusing, and you have to go to a 10-day silent retreat, and you can't look anyone in the eye, and it's very complex. And how many people can take off 10 days without their kids and without running their business and to be in silence? It's not that realistic. So I was thinking, well, I was able to do it at one point, and I thought, I achieved so much through being able to do that. How can I give it to other people in a cup size? So I put the instructions really simply in the book for people to do 11 minutes a day. So for me, that was something practical I could give my readers. Then the next one, my next chapter was Pride Cannot Feed a Baby. And it was about how I was literally starving, had no food, was completely broke. And I had to swallow my pride and ask my neighbor for some food from her garden. I was living, in this little hippie kind of communal thing, and I was very isolated still. And she came over, and I told her my whole story. She fed me. And I realized that most people, I do speeches all over the world, and I ask them, how many of you have an easy time asking for help? And if there are 50 people in the room, maybe one will raise their hands. If there are 100 people, maybe two. So we're looking at 2% max of people. And I mean, I've asked this question 100 times. And I thought, God, people don't know how to ask for help. I wasn't alone. So I put the very simple exercise of how exactly to ask for help. So, and it's called Make a Specific Request. And it teaches you about specificity and timelines in asking for help. And it's only 4 steps. So if you can learn to do that and master it, which it's not hard, your life will change. Your success is directly proportionate to how easy of a time you have asking for help. So there it is. And then I wrote exercises in each one just because I felt like so many books come out and it's like, oh, I created this multi-million-dollar business off nothing, and it's an overnight success, and here we all go, and why can't you be more like me? Which is total BS. It was more like, it was the 14-year overnight success. It took like 12 to 20-hour days for 14 years. It didn't just happen. So if I could help other people speed up the successes and milestones of what they'd like to achieve in their lives to become more healthy, to become more happy, then what a gift. So I saw the exercises really as a way to speed things up for my readers and as, a form of just, a helping hand from across the page.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate that format and that idea of the reflecting and being able to teach, a very specific thing and know that that one specific thing will actually help people, move right along. But the reflecting part of it, I think, is so important. And with those pages, dedicated to kind of asking some questions and reflecting really helps people, I think, to stop and reflect, which once again has a great connection with the tea moments, because that's what we love to do.
Exactly it. I mean, tea is such an exquisite ritual that we have access to every day of our lives. And how fortunate are we? So to be able to create, like, I always light my candle, I pour my tea, I say a little prayer, I do my meditation. And tea is something also, that I've used to bond with my kids, like to do tea ceremony. I have a gongfucha. I have a massive gongfucha table over there that you can't see, that was given to me by my Chinese tea suppliers. But then I have traveling ones, and my children love tea ceremony because it's a chance for us to stop, and they tell me things they wouldn't normally tell me, because we don't always sit down for dinner, unfortunately, because I work so much and we're all so busy, but we do sit down for tea, and that is our version of dinner time. And my kids have very expensive tea taste. But
what are the favorites at your house?
Oh, pu'er and oolong, and I drink a lot of yin-zhen, and we love, we do matcha, really nice matcha, and gyokurus, which are beautiful, and it's amazing. I'm going to grab it. My book got optioned. It's actually it came out in Japan, and it's doing really well there. And then I just got word a couple weeks ago that it is going into China, and it's being translated right now into Mandarin. And so a book about women's empowerment, success, and fair trade tea practices and ending poverty, an inspirational book to go into two of the major, China originated tea. What an honor. It's groundbreaking in my life. Yeah, pretty exciting.
I'm very excited about that. We'll be certainly promoting Mandarin, because we have an awful lot of Mandarin speakers here, even in Vancouver, that have recently come from China. So that is very exciting indeed, for sure.
Yeah, I'm so honored. I've been to China many times. I love the culture. I love the people. And I keep thinking like, I need to go on a book tour, but I'm so dang busy. So yeah.
No, wonderful. Yeah. I tell you, one of the things I'd love to hear a little bit more about the relationship with the tea garden workers. You had spoken to that a little bit, of how you came to take pictures, and maybe you could just tell me some of the differences that you were finding between the fair trade and non-fair trade tea gardens, and then how you were able to kind of document that, and your success with telling the story at the retailer, at the distributor.
Well, the whole theme, I believe, of my book, now that it's been out for a year and I kind of am reflecting on it, is really that with a mission to serve, you cannot fail. If you are really focused on helping others be healthy and happy, because everybody was like, how did you raise all that money? How did you get the tea onto the shelves? And in Canada, oh my God, I helped at UBC to help UBC become a fair trade campus. They served my tea. I don't know if they still do, but I was at London Drug up there, and I was educating them on fair trade. But the secret was, the world did not need another tea company. There are so many, as you know. There's so much tea and so many tea companies, but what the world did need was a company that was on a mission to really help the workers, because the workers are 9,000 miles away. They didn't have an advocate. Most people were just not aware because they don't have a voice, and they have a voice, but it hasn't been accessible to people because there's no technology there. There's no one going flying to, Sri Lanka and doing photojournalism about what's happening. I mean, there's been some now, but so when I got there, I thought, you know, I wanted to find the one fair trade garden that I'd heard about, and I went to there and I decided only to be fair trade. So I was looking at all the things that they were doing for their workers, and I thought, you know, this is like utopia. And the workers, you know, they make an equivalent of $12.50 a day, which is good there, compared to $1.50 a day, which is, and with no services, which is bad. And so I started watching it, and I thought, there will never be a day I can just go off and drink non-fair trade or non-organic tea after I've seen this truth, because the cancer rates in the non-organic gardens were through the roof. I mean, it was shocking. The women had, like, there were like 25 people living in like a shanty. There was no place to go to the bathroom. There was no privacy. There was, I mean, basic dignities. And I thought, how are these big brands, I mean, these big multinational brands, how is it that they can, with clear conscience, you know, be publicly traded and be treating these people like this? And actually, how can they sleep at night? Couldn't understand it. So I took that curiosity in, and I just started like documenting everything I could find, and worked really closely with Fair Trade USA, Paul Rice. And when I got to the big companies, I basically said, listen, you have this much space on your shelves of non-organic tea, non-fair trade tea. Look at their housing. Here's the photos. Look at their cancer rates. Here's the statistics I could find from the doctors. Here's, like, look at what's happening. And they were just like, I mean, what do you say to that? You can't unknow that once you know it. How do you feel? How do you feel now, you know, drinking that cup of tea? Before, you could blame it on ignorance, but now you know, so you can't be ignorant anymore. And everyone said, how can I help? So I'm very good at shaming them into helping. But it was also, they just didn't know. So I believe that, you know, with a mission to serve, you cannot fail. We didn't need another tea company, but we needed a company that would educate and advocate, you know, for these workers. And so the workers and I became very close. Zhena Muzyka is the tea estate manager in the garden where I was married. They threw my wedding for me. And that's everyone's favorite chapter in the book. I don't know if it's your favorite chapter, but that seems to be everyone's favorite chapter because it's sweet and romantic and everybody loves love. And my husband and I will be this April 10 years.
Oh, wonderful.
That faded, beautiful April of 2006 that we were married. It is Dolgocina Tea Estate, which is the preeminent fair trade tea estate. They were the first biodynamic fair trade tea estate in the world. And at that time, they were one of only 3 organic fair trade gardens in India and Sri Lanka. So it was pretty spectacular to witness. And they became family, and, you know, that's been the saddest thing since I left the tea company. I raised all that money and all those investors, you know, kind of took it over. The only thing I don't miss all the paperwork. I have plenty as a publisher. I don't miss dealing with distributors. That was really hard and terrible, and that was tough. But what I do miss is going to Sri Lanka and India 3 times a year and spending that time with the workers, because they really are like my soul family. There was a karmic bond and a tie, and I love them very dearly. And so I started a program called the Robin Hood Laptop Project, and we collect used laptops, we refurbish them, and we get them to the tea workers' children in that garden because of they had the vision, and the Fair Trade dollars helped build a computer learning center for the kids. Oh, so wow. They are becoming educated on technology, so that's going to change the game for everybody. And I detail all of that out in the book. Mm-hmm. As well. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
No, I did love that
I did
chapter
love that
about
chapter. The wedding.
and the idea that
Yeah.
the whole thing came full circle, so that they were so wanting to host that wedding for you. And I remember seeing you at the LAT festival in being able to know that story, and the way you told it there about how much love that they showed, and you know, they were so appreciative but hadn't really had an opportunity to thank you. And this was their way in a grand fashion that they could do that.
Absolutely. And you know what was so great is that, I mean, Gerard and I mean, eloping was so fabulous. And I basically just took the money I would have spent on a wedding and donated it to the garden estate for programs. And it was, I mean, the impact it had. So here it would have been one day. There, it's a lifetime of impact. You know, $10,000 there will change the world. $10,000 here, it's like, bam, oh yeah, and then that happened. You know, it's, oh, it was a beautiful wedding. Here, look at the pictures. Yeah. So I was like, oh, maybe we could start a trend of responsible elopements. Socially responsible eloping. That would be awesome.
I think that would go over very well. Socially responsible eloping. There's so many opportunities around the world for that.
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, in my next life. Yeah,
I'll do that. Yes. No, well, you never know. You've got lots of time. And that brings me round to, I guess, what you're really doing now in terms of heading up your own publishing division. And I just wanted to bring that back right into sort of the health, wellness, inspiration kind of avenue. And I think at the core of a lot of that is presence, and this idea of really being in the moment and being present. And I'm hoping you might be able to weave us through, you know, how that relates to your one cup at a time, and even how that relates into your day and what you're doing now.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting. I started out as a writer, and the tea company basically was, it saved my son's life. So I am so grateful for it. And then when I had all the investors and they wanted to move the company to LA, and I wanted to stay in Ojai because it's a tiny town of 8,000 and it's my lifestyle. I'm a nature girl, and but I understood it was a smart move to move it to LA, closer to the port of Long Beach where the tea comes in, and it just made all sorts of sense. But I was like, you know, I'm not a city girl. I'm a country mouse. I got to stay here. And what happened was I started becoming, you know, I started becoming more and more enamored with books again and how they go hand in hand. And I've always been a huge consumer of spirituality books and self-help books and mind, body, spirit and yoga books and like healthy cooking books. And I like read everything. And so my publisher, I started bringing authors to her, and she was like, you have really good taste and a great network. I'm part of the Transformational Leadership Council, which is the Jack Canfield from Chicken Soup for the Soul started a organization of transformational leaders, and they asked me to join. And so I've always been loving the transformation. And what was interesting is I brought my tea ceremony table to Simon & Schuster when I was introducing them to my book. And so many of them got off coffee and started drinking tea, and it was a life changer for all of them. So it just was a cultural thing. They needed me, and my dream was always to be in the book industry. So I got to return back to it. And how it works now is that I really miss the tea industry. Only the parts like the actual tea and the actual workers. I don't miss the business of tea. It was hard, as you know, and it was very competitive, but that's fine. I mean, the fair trade part was great. But what I'm getting to tie together is I'm actually probably going to create a line of teas for Enliven Books, teas that will go with the books so that people can create a really holistic reading experience. So one of my best friends, who's actually in the book, Sunny Justice, she's the goddess who was the head of Burt's Bees, the head of sales and marketing at Burt's Bees. She just moved back and is heading up a candle company. And we've been working on, okay, a candle for readers, tea for readers, like how can we combine this whole, and I was thinking of like cashmere blankets, you know, because you get in your cozy, you light your candle, you make your tea, you read your book. It's like, oh, it's like, did I die and go to heaven? Yes, you did, but you're still here. So I was thinking like of tying all that together, and that's still, I mean, it's only been a year since I started Enliven, so I gotta slow down a little, which is what they tell me. But I see that happening, and maybe Gypsy Tea will end up, or Zena's is what it's called now, will end up becoming that tea supplier. I'm not sure, but yeah, I can definitely see that.
That's a lovely evolution. I can really see that too, because a book and a cup of tea do go so nicely together indeed.
It works, right?
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Well, I tell you, Gia, it's been just a delight to be able to hear more about your story and hear the details, especially in regards to what you're doing now and on to, because it sounds like that is truly got a passion and a big part of your heart as well. And then the whole story of development of your teas, Zena's Gypsy Teas, because I love the book. And one of the reasons that I love the book so much was I was so inspired by you had just, an inordinate amount of creative solutions to the next challenge of, what was to go on to help you forward. And your resilience and persistence and creativity was really, truly something that I loved reading about, and has given me some good heart when times things can get, a little challenging, but certainly knowing there's always the right creative solution around the corner if one will just hold on and take a breath.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It really is. When I wouldn't know what to do next, I still do this. I will stop everything and make a cup of tea. And by the time I finish sipping it, I'll know what to do next. And it's always been my stepping stone. So thank you for recognizing that and sharing it with your audience. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. Well, it's been just a delight to have you here for Thirsty Thursdays and our topic of presents and your wonderful book. If you people haven't seen it, but Life by the Cup would make a beautiful Christmas gift too.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's available on all the online stores and Barnes and Noble, and in Canada, I think Chapters has it. Yeah. So
okay, super. Well, we'll say toodaloo and bye bye for now. And thank you so much for joining us, Zhena. It's been just a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye, Wendy.
Bye.